Now let us discuss about responsibilities and duties of procurement committees. In previous lecture, we have discussed different types of procurement committees. That is a cabinet-appointed procurement committee, standing cabinet-appointed procurement committee, a ministry procurement committee, ministry procurement minor procurement committee, and project procurement committee, again minor procurement committee, and a department procurement committee, right? So, and a regional procurement committee. Right? Now, let us discuss the responsibilities and duties of procurement committees. The member of the procurement committee are jointly and individually, right? Jointly as a group as well as individually responsible for the following. Number one, ensure that the funds are available, right? We have to ensure the procurement committee should ensure that they have uh, enough funds for procurement, ensuring that procurement funds are available for the procurement actions under the consideration. So if you want, if the if an entity has established for the procurement of construction of building, so the cost of the building is a 100 million. So before start the procurement process, the procurement committee should ensure that the entity, procurement entity, has enough money. Number two, reviewing and agreeing upon the procurement time schedule. It's a timetable, right? It's a timetable, it's an agenda program. So they have to review and agreeing upon the procurement time schedule in order to award the contract as planned. At the first meeting, at the first meeting, determining the dates and the manner of advertising the procurement. Right? You know, the public procurement advertisements bid, invitation for bid should be advertised in a newspaper, national newspaper. Right? Therefore, at the first meeting, they have to decide the date and the manner of advertising the procurement. Sale of bidding, right? Bidding, we will discuss it later about uh, what are the bidding documents, sale of bidding documents, and closing and opening of bids. Right? We will discuss it later in detail about these terms: sale of bidding documents, closing and opening of bids, and agreeing with technical evaluation committee on the type and nature of bidding. Right? They have to agree with types and nature of bidding and contract documents used. Right? The procurement committee and technical evaluation committee should agree. Both of them are agree with types and nature of the bidding and the contract document. And the procurement committee should participate and direct in the technical innovation committee. So they have to guide. Procurement committee should guide the technical innovation committee in providing or requesting clarification where deemed appropriate. So whenever procurement committee needs clarification, they have to ask them. They have to request from the technical innovation committee. And reviewing and evaluation, reviewing the evaluation report and recommendation of technical evaluation committee, and making determination or recommendation in accordance with the guidelines. When we see that the procurement committee is a powerful committee, superior body than other bodies. So final responsibility lies on the procurement committee. So finally, the reviewing the evaluation report and recommendation of state committee. Even though tech committee has made some recommendation on evaluation, finally the procurement committee should review that documents and making determination or recommendation in accordance with the guideline. Once the tech committee, technical evaluation committee, right, evaluate, recommend the things, finally procurement committee review that and they have to approve whether they are following all the guidelines, the recommendation. If necessary, the procurement committee can make some amendments, can give some suggestions to the technical evaluation committee. Now we'll discuss the technical evaluation committee, right? Technical evaluation committee. There shall be a technical evaluation committees for all recruitments, right? There should be a technical evaluation committee for all procurements falling under the purview of cabinet appointed procurement committee, ministry procurement committee, department procurement committee, and project procurement committee. No member should serve in both procurement and technical evaluation committee. It means one member cannot serve in both committees. Say, for example, Mr. X is the member of procurement committee. Therefore, he unable to uh, serve as a member for technical evaluation committee. Likewise, Mr. D is a member of technical evaluation committee and he unable to serve in the procurement committee. The technical evaluation committee should consist of subject specialist, and at least one member who is sufficiently knowledgeable on procurement procedures. Right, in the technical evaluation committee, one person at least one person should be a subject specialist. Say, for example, the university is going to purchase uh, computers, right? High-tech computers or scanner, right? Going to purchase special kind of scanner. At that time, the well knowledgeable person on the scanner about the scanner should be a member of that committee, and also another member, and at least another member who has sufficiently knowledgeable on procurement process. He should know, he should be an expert person how procurements are made in the government sectors. The technical evaluation committee, where necessary, may obtain expert advice from the external, right? In case the institutional technical evaluation committee does not have experts, then that time they can get expert advice from the external members or institution on a specific subject matter. Right? The, uh, the university is going to construct a building. So if the university does not have an expert in the building, they can get the advice from the building department. From building department, right? And the technical evaluation committee may also obtain assistance for drafting a bidding document, right? So technical evaluation committee may also obtain assistance for drafting bidding document and evaluation of bids from external consultants. External consultant. If the tech committee feels that so better to get the advice from the external person, definitely they can get the advice from the external consultant, who shall be guided and directed by the technical evaluation committee members. Right? Even though they are getting the service, consultancy service from external person, the whole responsibility lies on the member of technical evaluation committee. So therefore, they have to guided and directed by the technical evaluation committee. The technical evaluation committee is, however, solely responsible for the technical evaluation, right? Even though they have given the works to others, external person or external consultants, the technical committee members solely responsible for the technical evaluation. If there are any cases, right, any faults, mis-evaluation of the technical aspects of the purchased item, so finally, all the blames, all the faults lies on the member of technical evaluation committee. People ask who are the technical evaluation committee members, who is recommend this item, that kind of questions will arise. The relevant procuring entity shall nominate officers who could who could devote time to participate regularly in evaluation committee proceedings, right? So the procuring entity, that the organization who is getting the items, the work or service, they have to nominate the people, nominate the officers who able to allocate time to participate to the technical evaluation committee meeting regularly. So it is not good to appoint officers who are very busy with on their work, right? Busy with their own work. So when selecting members for the technical evaluation committee, procuring evaluation entity should nominate the persons who are able to participate the tech committee meeting regularly and obtain approval from the relevant authority. So before appointing a person officer from the institute, the procuring entity should get the approval from the relevant authority. They should obtain the approval from the relevant authority. An officer should not be appointed to serve in more than 3 tech committees at a time. An officer can be served as a member at a time only three, in a three committee, in three evaluation committee, he can serve. So more than that, he can't. Now let us discuss the responsibilities and duties of technical evaluation committee. The member of the technical evaluation committees are jointly, right, jointly and severally, jointly and individually responsible for the following activities. Number one, to recommend and agree, right? They have to recommend and agree with procurement committee, right? The procurement time schedule in order to award the contract within the minimum time period possible, right? So they have to recommend and agree with procurement committee in order to uh, award the contract within minimum period. So therefore, both of them should agree with procurement time schedule. To review and review and approve of specification, technical specification. No? When they purchase computers, they have to check uh, the specifications such as the speed of the computer, memory, capacity, display size, operating system, right? Generation, right? Cache memory, everything, right? They have to review and approve the specification to ensure that the specifications are generic. Generic means it's common for all, right? It's generic in nature, and competitiveness could be promoted on equal level, on equal level. So that's why when prepare the specifications, uh, normally not mention the brand, not the brand. right? Brand of the item. When they purchase laptop for government organization, they are not mentioning the brand of the uh, laptop. Instead of that, they mention what are the capacity of the hard disk, capacity of the RAM, and display size, operating system, the version, the type of the uh, processor, like that. And also the specifications of the item allows to have a good competitiveness at the time of purchase item for the government. The bid should be competitive one. Many suppliers are should be there in the market. The competitiveness could be promoted on equal level, right? When the government advertise the bid for purchase of laptop, the sub the opportunity to the chance to supply the computer should be equal to all suppliers. In case of procurements handled by cabinet appointed procurement committees and ministry procurement committees to revisit, right? They have to uh, they have to revise or reconsider specification if objections are received from the bidders, any bidders 10 days prior to closing of bids. So we put the specification, but say for example, when we prepare the bid document, we mentioned that we need 15 generation of the uh, 15 generation of 15 generation processor, 15 generation processor. But in the market, uh, up to now, up to date, 11 generation available in the market. So the bidders are confusing, right? Then the bidders can inform in writing to the procuring entity. They can say up to now the 15 generation processors are not come to the market, not available in the market. Therefore, we are unable to put the bid, right? So that kind of clarifications, objections, right, can be uh, sent by the bidders, right? In case of procurement handled by cabinet appointed procurement committee and ministry procurement committee, to revise specifications if objections are received any bidders 10 days 10 days prior to the closing date of the bid. The procuring entity shall convey its decision to all bidders who have purchased the bidding documents. And to review and approve the pre-qualifications document or bidding documents, pre-qualification or bidding documents prepared by the procuring entity, right? The bidding document is prepared by the procuring entity to ensure that the requirements of these guidelines and accept principles of procurement are complied, right? The tech committee should review and approve the bid document. This bid document is prepared by procuring entity. When they prepare that document, the tech committee should review that whether they are followed the guidelines and accepted principles of the procurement and in line with that. And tech committee responsible to direct the procuring entity. They can guide tech committee can guide procuring entity to obtain clarifications from bidders in writing where appropriate. If there are any clarifications, then the tech committee can direct the procuring entity to obtain the clarification in writing. In writing, not all the times when they appropriate. When they need it only, they can get the clarification. And responsible to approve and issue addenda, supplementaries, right? Appendix to the bidding documents where necessary. If there are any appendixes, right, then the tech committee is responsible to approve that. To agree upon bid opening procedure with procuring entity, right? So once they advertise for bidding, bid invitation for bid, they will receive the bid documents, the price quotations by the supplier. And after closing date, the procuring committee will open the bid documents, open the envelope of the prices quoted by the suppliers. It will happen in a day. All bidding, all tenders will open in a day, in a time, at a particular time. So at that time, the tech committee should agree with that. The procedure to be followed in opening bid document by the procuring entity. To participate in negotiations if directed by the procurement committee, right? The procuring committee sometimes request them to participate in negotiation with the bidders. So to review the draft contract prepared by the procuring entity, right? So the contract, right? The contract is prepared by contract document is prepared by the procuring entity. That time they have to review that draft to ensure that it complies with determination of the procuring committee. When they review the draft contract prepared by the procuring entity, the committee should ensure that the contract document, the document is follows the guidelines of the procurement committee. Now we'll see the recommending and appointing authority of tech committee, technical evaluation committee. The technical evaluation committee for cabinet appointed procurement committees, cabinet appointed procurement committees. Who is recommending authority? Who is recommend the secretary to the line ministry? Secretary to the line ministry should recommend the member of the tech committee. And appointing committee is National Procurement Agency. Procurement Agency. And the technical evaluation committee for the ministry procurement committees. Ministry procurement committees. The recommending authority is out of the department. Out of the department, and appointing authority is the secretary to the ministry, chief accounting officer, secretary to the line ministry. And technical evaluation committee for project procurement committee or the department procurement committee for both. The appointing authority is head of the department. Head of the department will appoint the technical evaluation committee members. And tech for regional procurement committees. Head of the department will decide the requirement of tech committee or regional procurement committee. So no technical evaluation committee required if regional procurement committee has persons competent to do technical evaluation. If regional procurement committee members have capacity to do the technical evaluation, at that time there's no need to have a technical evaluation committee. If required, appointing authority is the head of the department. Head of the department. He is the accounting officer. Right. We already discussed about this thing, financial institutional framework. Under that, we have discussed procuring entities and also discussed procurement and monitoring regulatory authorities. Under this, here, National Procurement Agency, National Procurement Commission, and procurement, right? And here we discuss procurement committees, PCs, right? And also we discuss technical evaluation committee also. Now we look at regulatory framework. Earlier we have discussed institutional framework. Now we'll discuss regulatory framework. And it can be divided into two, the domestic and the foreign procurement. Right? For the domestic procurement, we have to follow two things: statutes governing the procurement actions, laws, right? Law or act, and national procurement guidelines. National procurement guidelines you can download from National Procurement Commission website. If you want, I can upload in the VLE too. Procurement guidelines, manuals, and regulations. In case of foreign procurement, foreign international procurement supplies, and they have to follow a procurement provision in the foreign financial agreements and the procurement guidelines for international organizations. We discuss it later. Now we will look at on the domestic one, domestic and statutes governing procurement action in Sri Lanka. The regulatory framework, the domestic, local, right? So statutes governing procurement actions. Statutes, the law, the act. The act is number 3 of 1987. It's called Public Contract Act. Public Contract Act. The laws applicable to procurement actions in Sri Lanka shall be laws of the Domestic Social Republic of Sri Lanka. The Public Contract Act. This is the name of the act. Public Contract Act number 3 of 1987. It is applicable for every public contract that exceeds 5 million. That exceeds 5 million rupees. Below 5 million rupees, the contract value is below 505 million rupees. No need to consider this act. Very importantly, section 8.1. 8.1 provides that any person who act as agent or sub-agent or representative or nominee on behalf of the any tenderer mean a person or an institute that apply a tender, right? A bid, apply for a bid, quote a price, tenderer shall register, right? Shall register himself. So in simple terms, representative or agent of the tenderer should be register himself, and such public contract in accordance with the section 10 and shall furnish to the registrar to the particulars required to be furnished under section 6. So the section 8 is linked with section 10 and section 6. Section 6 explain what are the particulars to be submitted to the registrar to register as an agent, as a nominee to the tender. And section 10 explains public contract accordance with section 10. So how to register, right? Section 8.2, where any person is an agent or sub-agent or representative or nominee of on behalf of the tenderer, he shall first produce the certificate of his appointment as an agent, right? So section 8 say how to register, right? About the registration as an agent or representative. The nominees, if there are registered person as a nominee, they have to submit the certificate of appointment as agent or sub-agent or representative for nominee to the registrar. If any person want to work act as a nominee or representative of the tenderer, he should register he should register as a agent or sub-agent or representative of the tenderer. And he should submit the certificate of his appointment as an agent or representative to the registrar. They should issue the should give the appointment letter to the registrar. And section 9 says every person who contravenes or fails, any person who violates, breach the or fails to comply with the provisions of section 8. Section 8, it says what? Registration of uh, representative or agent of the tender. If any person violates section 8, shall be guilty, right? He'll be a guilty of an offense, and shall be liable to convictions, to a fine, right? Sentenced to fine of 100,000 rupees, 100,000 rupees, and to imprisonment. They have to go to jail, imprisonment for a term of not exceeding 2 years, maximum 2 years, and they have to pay a fine of 100,000 rupees. Section 12 says any member of a public body, a technical committee, a tender board, or evaluation board of such body, or any officer or employee thereof, or any state officer or the registrar. Registrar gives some exception at the time of registration, at registrar, except for the purpose of registration, right? Registration time only they can communicate. The registrar can communicate with the tenderer or agent of the tenderer. Shall not have any dealing, not have any dealing, with any person referred in the section 8. Section 8 says what about what? The representative or agent of the tenderer. It means the procurement entity representatives or any people, any officers in the procuring entity should not keep any dealing with the tenderer or contractor. Right? Section 8 in regard to any matter arising out of in relation to the public contract. Right? They should not have any dealing unless the person referred in the section 8 first produce the valid certificate of registration issued under the section. Right? At the time they should submit the certificate of registration as an agent or representative. Right? From that date, he is not have a deal with any officers. Any person who contravenes the provisions of this act shall be guilty of an offense as an offense. Both parties, the government side also not to deal with them, deal with contractor, and also contractor also not deal with the officers. So in that kind of dealings will be considered as a guilty, an offense. And section 9.2. So no person required to be registered under section 8 shall have any dealing directly or indirectly relating to public contract. And if any person who is directly or indirectly deal with the public contract, right? Contract, he cannot be served as a agent or the representative of the tender. No person required to be registered under the section 8. So no person who is having with any dealing directly or indirectly with the registrar or any officers from the procuring entity, he cannot be registered under the section 8. It means they cannot serve as an agent or representative. No person required to be registered under Section 8 shall have any dealing directly or indirectly relating to the public contract. So with the registrar or with any member of the public body. With the registrar except for the purpose of registration. Registration purpose only he can deal with registrar. With any members of public body or technical committee, tender board, relation board of such body, or any officers or employee thereof, or any state officer, without first producing valid certificate of registration under this act. If such person has any dealings or attempts to have any dealings, he shall be guilty of an offence and liable on conviction thereof to fine not exceeding 100,000 rupees and to imprisonment for term of not exceeding 2 years. Right? So without submitting a valid certificate to the registrar, and he such person has any dealing or attempts to have any dealing shall be a guilty. Keeping dealing with the officers is a guilty of offense. Now we'll see the national procurement guidelines and uh, regulations, manual regulations. Under the regulatory framework, we still discuss about domestic. Under that, the second part of that, procurement guidelines, manuals, and regulations. National Procurement Agency or National Procurement Agency's procurement guidelines. The procurement guidelines is issued by the National Procurement Agency in 2006. Manuals and regulations set forth the procedures that should be adhered by the procuring entity. Right? There's a manual or guidelines, right? Regulations. These regulations are issued by the National Procurement Authority. It's a National Procurement Agency. Then and then from the 19th Amendment, the name has changed as National Procurement Commission, and due to the 20th Amendment, that commission also vanished. In carrying out any procurement actions financed fully or impartially by the government of Sri Lanka or a foreign funding agency. So whatever the funding source, any procurement done in the public organization, common organization, they have to follow the National Procurement Agency's guidelines, manual, and circulars. No other. The present National Procurement Agent guidelines repealed the earlier guidelines on government tender procedure. It was published in 1997. Revised guidelines on government tender procedure for project assisted by the Foreign Financing Agency. It's also published in 2000. And Treasury circulars pertaining to the guidelines on government tender procedure issued by 2005. So there were many guidelines before 2006. So all the things become void, right? Valueless after. Now we have 2018 procurement guideline 2018. So if you want, I can show you that document also. Right? So you can see the screen. This is the National Procurement Commission, and you can find the guidelines and manuals. The procurement guideline. It is in how many language? 3 languages. This is what the procurement guidelines. 2019 Goods Work Service and the Information System. It is published by National Procurement Commission. So it has almost 120 pages. So you can download and you can read it. So this is what procurement, National Procurement Guideline. So if you appointed as a member of the technical evaluation committee or the procurement committee, we have to follow this guideline. Right. Here, the National Procurement Guidelines Manual Regulations can be divided into two: guidelines for procuring entity, guidelines for procuring entity, and also it can be divided into guidelines for the procurements of goods, works, and non-consultant services. Non-consultant services, goods, works, and non-consultant services. Guidelines for goods, works, and non-consultant services, non-consultant, and manual for goods, works, and non-consultant services, and its supplements. Right? It's a guideline. This is manual. Right? There are two: guidelines and manual. And guidelines for the procurement of consultant service. Consultant service. So it can be guidelines for the consultant service and manual for consultant services and its supplements. Again, guidelines for the contractors. It is for procurement entity. This is for contractors, other parties in the procurement. So, is example, Bidder's Guide to Success in Public Procurement, a handbook. So it's a handbook for uh, tender, tenderers, right? External person. So, in simple, this is for external person, internal person, international office. For the government organization, this is for public. Public mean the individual tenderer, external people. So guidelines for goods, works, and non-consultant services. As I explained to you, it was 2006. Now it's 2018. It's a new edition. New edition 2019. No, 2009 guidelines and guidelines for private sector infrastructure project, procurement guidelines for pharmaceutical and medical devices. There are three types of guidelines. And manual for goods, works, and non-consultant services and its supplements. So the use procurement manual 2008, the latest versions there. And there are 34 supplements to the manual as of July 2018. And 2018, there were 34 supplements, mean say appendixes. Guidelines for consultant services, guidelines for selection and employment of consultants, and manual for consultant services and its supplements. Right? Now we will see the foreign, right? In case of foreign uh, funded projects or that sort of things, we'll see. In case of foreign funded project, if the foreign funding agency mandates, right, requires, right, mandates the use of procurement guidelines of such funding agency. The funding agency may include World Bank, European Union, International Monetary Fund, like that. Mandates the use of procurement guidelines of such funding agency, such funding agencies guidelines, right? And every funding agencies having their own guidelines. So World Bank is having their guidelines. European Union has its own guidelines. Shall prevail over the national guidelines to extent applicable. If, say, for example, World Bank is funded to construct a new power plant in Sri Lanka. So in that project, World Bank requires to follow their guidelines, mean World Bank guidelines. That time they have to, common organization should follow World Bank guidelines. And it supersedes the national guidelines. In the event of conflict between these guidelines, national guidelines and the funding agencies guideline, the funding agency guidelines take precedence, right? If there are any contradiction between national guidelines and international guidelines given by the organization, uh, the guideline provided by the funding agency is more powerful. And procurement guidelines for international organizations. International organization. Other international guidelines which has good procurement practices includes World Bank guidelines, United Nations Commission on International Trade Laws, United Nations uh, Commission on International Trade and Law, European Union Procurement Rules, GPA of WTO, World Trade Organization Agreement on Government Procurement, and NAFTA, North American Free Trade Agreement, North American Free Trade Agreement, Procurement Rules, Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation, APEC Procurement Principles. So when we see the common features of procurement guidelines, it is common guidelines between the local and internationals. What are the features? So whatever the guidelines, it should have the clear statement of objectives. Each guidelines have clear statement of objectives. Wider publicity, it's available everywhere. And non-discriminatory specifications, not right, it's not discriminatory, for in local, black people, white people, Asian, national, race, whatsoever. There's no discrimination, right? And open tender as general rule, right? The rule is common for all. Fair bidding procedures, the bid procedure should be fair, not rigid, not easy, so fair. And disclose of qualification, selection criteria, right? And public bid opening, evaluation by pre-disclosed criteria, publication of award, who has won the contract, appeal or challenge in case of uh, discriminations or grievances. There should be a proper procedure to be to the incident. Fair conditions of contract and quick dispute resolution mechanism. If there are any disputes among contractor and the organization, there should be a mechanisms, clear mechanisms should be there to solve the issue very quickly. So that's all about the procurement. Uh, so if you have any doubt, you can ask questions or you can post your doubts in the chat box.